that your retirement will come much sooner than you think? Retirement is a crucial stage in life that should not be taken for granted. The absence of a monthly salary during retirement reinforces the need for retirement planning. So how are you planning for retirement? The Access Pension team helped me to set my retirement goals, take my financial inventory, assess my retirement prospects, evaluate my financial situation, set my pension plan in motion, and review and monitor my retirement planning progress.
Oh,
Daddy,
oi, huh?
I want to eat pizza.
You will eat a both fruits. Go and ask your mother.
Visit accesspension.com. Access Pension Trust, your reliable partner.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Smart Money Talk with Access Pension Trust. I want to especially welcome those of you joining us for the very first time. This is a weekly live and interactive session right here on Facebook Live. What we do is that we discuss topics relating to personal finance and retirement planning. At Access, we believe that financial peace of mind is actually possible. And so our aim as a company is to ensure that we are all equipped with the useful information that will help us achieve this dream. And so today, we are happy to have a very important person in our midst who will be helping us to actually touch on a few topics relating to personal finance. Before I introduce him, I just want to say that you should all try and join us every Wednesday at 4 p.m. right here on Facebook. My name is Ernest Atima, and I'll be your host for today. Over the past months, we've been discussing various topics. We've looked at budgeting. We've looked at how to invest in these uncertain times. We've looked at emergency funds. We've also touched on how to assess your financial health. And last week, Park Kofi and Carl helped us to understand various investment options on the Ghanaian market and some of the things we need to know as far as investment is concerned. Today, we have a very fine gentleman here. And he's a man I respect so much. His name is Derek Mensah. Derek is the head of business development at IC Asset Managers. He's also the man in charge of equity portfolio in the whole of IC Asset Managers. He's a very big man. And Derek has several years of experience when it comes to financial activities in the Ghanaian market. He's actually an international correspondent as well. He actually corresponds for Bloomberg and other international financial platforms. Derek, good afternoon and welcome to this show.
Thank you very much, Ernest. That was quite an introduction. The standard has been set too high. I hope I don't disappoint.
You are not going to disappoint at all. We know you're a man of knowledge, and we know this afternoon we're really going to enjoy this session with you. I just want to find out how you are doing and how COVID is treating you so far, how you are coping with this whole pandemic. And then we can set the ball rolling.
Well, we can't complain once we have life. We thank God for that. The other thing is that COVID has forced us to think outside the box, both financially and in our lifestyle as well. So somebody like me who's not used to technology is now having to deal with virtual meetings every now and then and client engagements virtually. So we are adjusting and we are learning.
Wonderful, wonderful. I mean, this COVID has taught us that technology is actually an important tool that should be part of our lives. And so it's good we are all learning to get used to it. After viewers, today we want to touch on a very important topic. We believe that it's important we all try to achieve financial independence. And so from where Derek is coming from, he is a fund manager. And like I mentioned, he has several experience when it comes to fund management. We want to understand from him how fund managers can help you and I to achieve financial independence. And so, Derek, before we even start, we want to understand who a fund manager is and what they do. If you can please help us to understand who you are, in fact, and what you actually do.
Well, to answer your question directly, who I am is a humble servant of finance, a humble student of finance. So every day I learn. But just to also build a bit more context on what who fund managers are and what we do. Basically, I think that the name in itself is self-explanatory. We are people or professionals or finance professionals who generally manage funds. What I mean by that is that assets of our clients, or generally assets held by individuals or institutions, what we do is to study the assets, understand the client or the owner of the assets objectives and goals, and then we, based on market and the outlook for the market and the economy, we are able to advise the client, recommend that you do A or B or C. And that's what generally we do. Understanding the financial markets, understanding our clients' needs and what they have, and helping them on the journey to achieve their investment objectives.
Thank you very much, Derek. For the benefit of our cherished viewers, I would want you to just give us some examples of fund managers on the market. I know this is very difficult for you, but try as much as possible for us.
Well, fund managers, if you want the best, obviously, Access deals with the best. So you have IC Asset Managers on the platform as well. But IC Asset Managers is one of the fund managers on the platform in Ghana. We also have Stanlib Investments. We have EDC. We have SAS Investments. We are quite a number of us on the market. And these days, after the SEC's sanitization, that's how I choose to call it. Once you go to the SEC's website, all the fund managers listed there are in good standing, and everybody there I respect and recommend so much.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, to put things in perspective, you know, coming from a pensions background, we would want to understand what you do for pension funds. So in other words, what's your role when it comes to the pensions industry?
Okay, so when it comes to pension, in the pension industry, our role, because of the nature of the pension law, fund managers are more of advisors when it comes to pension specifically. What it means is that we look at the assets of the pension trustee or the pension fund, and we recommend that, okay, you are supposed to invest in this way, you are supposed to liquidate from here, generally provide advice. The difference between being an investment advisor and being an actual fund manager is the fact that most fund managers are likely to have what we call a discretionary mandate, which means once we discuss your objectives and your wants and your needs, you leave the fund manager to achieve those needs and you set benchmarks for them. But when it comes to the pension, the way the pension law is structured is such that in that space, fund managers tend to act more as advisors by giving recommendation based on what the board of trustees of that particular pension fund needs. So in that space, I'll say we are more of investment advisors than actual fund managers.
All right, so it means that a fund manager typically can do advisory, and at the same time, a fund manager can actually manage funds, if I get you.
Exactly.
Wonderful, wonderful. So Derek, if let's say I should work to IC Asset Managers with some funds which I want to invest, what are some of the options you have? I mean, in a typical fund management institution, what are some of the things or assets individuals can invest in?
So what will we typically do? So walking you through how, let's say, a typical client individual walks through our doors, what happens is that first you need to assess the client, be it institutional or be it a retail or an individual. You first need to, what we call the KYC, you need to KYC the client, speak to the client, get to understand what the client needs before you even proceed to providing any form of recommendation. So typically what we'll do, let's say if Ernest walks through our door, we tend to understand what Ernest's investment needs are, his objectives are, his goals are. Then we understand get a dynamic of how his spending or his income levels are, and then we structure a particular investment plan for yourself or the individual, and then we proceed to onboarding that individual and then investing and monitoring that investment. So that's typically the line or the process when it comes to individuals. When it comes to institutions, usually institutions tend to have an idea of what they already want. So when they come in, we agree on an investment management agreement or agree on certain dynamics, and we proceed then to onboarding and investing. But just to answer your question on what products or what should people be considering, it's a myriad of things. The particular times that we are in, and I hope your audience don't hold me to the gun, but the times that we are in is not normal times. So the investment recommendation we may be giving to you today is not applicable to where markets are normal or what we call normalized times. So investments available to individuals or institutions is a broad range. Everything on the market is typically available. So we are talking about bonds, whether corporate bonds or government bonds. And just to break it down to your audience, these are debt securities. When we say debt securities, what we are trying to say here is that investments that are generally, it's actually debt that the issuer is looking for. So you are lending money to this issuer, and over time, that issuer will pay your principal and your interest. So that is government bonds, corporate bonds are all debt securities. Then you also have equities. So equities are the stocks that you see on the Ghana Stock Exchange. That is available to everybody as well. And then in the private side, you may have some mezzanine, what we call mezzanine. That's a mixture of debt and so quasi-debt or quasi-equity securities. That gets a bit more sophisticated, and those are usually left for more sophisticated investors. But at the moment, I believe that what we recommend largely given the times are government securities, be it foreign currency securities in the form of Eurobonds, or be it local currency bonds that are currently trading on the market. So that option and that range is available for investors at this point.
Thank you, Derek. Let me just find out, why are you saying that in these times that we are in, government bonds or government securities are the best investments you would recommend for an investor?
Mainly because of the uncertainty we are in. So government securities are considered risk-free. So risk-free in the sense that worst case scenario, the government can print more money and pay you. There's a caveat there. If it is not foreign currency, I mean, obviously, if the government owes you dollars to a certain amount, they don't have control over dollars. So if they're defaulting, then it becomes an issue. So for foreign currency government bonds, there is even an element of risk in there. But generally, because of the uncertainty, the abnormal times we are in, nobody really knows. I can. To be honest, there'll be difficulty for any fund manager to tell you what exactly the market is going to behave 3 months, 6 months from now, because what the markets have done globally and locally over the last 3 months or so is insanity. So for now, it's best to keep it risk-free, best to be conservative and play to the ear of the market rather than jump in and go all guns blazing, going in for risk, taking on risk. It's not advisable because we don't even know what is going to happen in the next 30 days, let alone the next 6 months.
Wonderful. So let me just try to summarize what you have said. You are saying that in these times, it's important that we all stay conservative. We shouldn't try to follow returns and take more and more risk, but rather try to preserve what we have by going more into the government space, which is more secured as far as our returns are concerned. Wonderful. Now, before we delve deeper into the topic for the day, I just want to welcome all those who just joined us. And this has been the Axis Smart Money Talk Show. And today we are live with Derek Mensah of IC Asset Managers. And Derek is helping us to understand who a fund manager is and what their role are. And so basically, we want to move on to a very important aspect of today's discussion, and that's we want to delve deeper into financial independence. This is, should I say, a concept that has been overused by a lot of people, and sometimes we end up missing what it actually means. And today, since we have an expert on this show, we want to hear from the expert. In your opinion, what is financial independence? If I, Ernest, sitting here, wants to be financially independent, what does it mean?
In simple words, you need a lot of cash. Cash is king. But on a more serious note, to define or to really understand what financial independence is, or just to give it a bit more context, is basically being able to not have to depend on your salary or depend on your employer for you to be able to generate income. So you have so much income coming in that you don't have to depend on anybody else. You are your own person. So the Americans will say, I'm a made man. Basically, you have enough cash, you have enough assets, you have enough income to live on for the rest of your life without having to depend on anybody. That is, in broad terms, what financial independence means.
And so as I'm sitting here right now, if I'm in the position to sustain myself, my current lifestyle, enjoying all the things that I've been enjoying because I'm working, if I'm able to sustain that lifestyle without having to depend on any external source of income, then it means I am financially independent.
Yeah, so there's a bit of a twist there. If you say any form of external income, that's where there's a bit of a change, because if you are able to set up businesses or you're able to do investments all across, and that investment is generating income to sustain your lifestyle for as long as you want or for the rest of your life, then you are financially independent. So I'll say that you may have to depend on external sources of income, but that income or that income you are generating fits into your lifestyle. And I don't know how to couch it, but saying that you don't depend on an external source might not be correct, because you might have set up businesses or made investments, and those investments are bringing in the income. So it's just the word in there, but basically the logic is right.
All right, so basically being able to sustain your lifestyle from investment or wealth you have accumulated over the period.
Exactly.
Wonderful, wonderful. So then how do fund managers help individuals to achieve financial independence?
So we do, it's in a number of ways. As professional advisors, as professional financial professionals, we are able to understand the needs of the client. Again, when I say client, I mean whether you are institutional or you are retail. We know the markets, we are experts, so we know what the markets are likely to act or behave over a certain period. We understand your needs, we understand your financial resources, we understand your goals. So when a professional comes into that light, and when I speak professional, I mean the fund manager, what we do is to be able to guide you to be able to achieve those objectives. Oftentimes, it's difficult for individuals who are not financially inclined, even those that are financially inclined but are doing other things. It's not their core work, tend to get sidetracked. So I used to have a client who was a very good equities guy. So he had quite a decent portfolio of equities, and he invested both in Ghana, Nigeria, and in the States. But in a twinkle of an eye, if you are not focused on the market or you are not on the market every day, you tend to lose some form of investments or opportunities. So he will mix up his portfolio, let it sit, and probably not touch it for another 6 or 7 months. And each time when he touches his portfolio, I know he has, because he calls me and goes like, Derek, when did Facebook's price change? When did this happen? Oh no, I didn't see this. So what helps in that circumstance is you have a finance professional whose job it is that every day is monitoring the markets, monitoring the economies, and more importantly, monitoring your investment objectives. And it's dedicated to letting you achieve those objectives that you have agreed on paper with. So that is the difference between trying to achieve financial independence on your own and leaning a bit on professional help from the finance advisor or the finance fund manager.
So are these services available? Should I walk into IC Asset Managers? If I walk into your office, can I get someone to guide me through this financial journey?
Yes, we actually have, if not to blow our own on, one of the largest private wealth desks, because our sister company, IC Security, is also doing all these issues on the market. We tend to, over the years, build a very vast network of individuals. So we are able to provide private wealth services for individuals, for family trust, and whatever the dynamics are. We are able to provide that, and we sit with the client, and it's a customized service for individuals to be able to achieve that level. However, I must be honest, and those customized approach tend to come with a certain level of fees and certain level of assets. So for a lot of us, and I say us because I count myself included, where the fee and the assets you are required to have that level of customized service might be a bit high, the best advice I give to friends and including myself is first and foremost, have a plan for yourself. When I say a plan, what do you want to be? Or how much do you want to have? Or what kind of lifestyle you want to achieve maybe 10 years from now, or when you retire. At these days, the young boys like us I count myself young, but I know I'm a bit old. The young guys like us would like to retire at 50. My younger cousins want to retire at 45. But basically, you need to project the lifestyle you want to have at your retirement and plan for it now. And that will be the first step for me, that is the first step to financial independence. So when you can afford these kind of fees that customized service might offer, you are then able to create your own, and then even seek the advice of these fund managers to be able to tell you that, okay, I can put my money in this pooled investment. I can put it in maybe the Access personal pension. I can put it in a mutual fund. Or maybe I can start pulling it together myself in this kind of form, and once it builds up, I can migrate it to this. But the first line of action for anyone is to first define that objective and that plan, and then speak to an advisor to be able to achieve it.
Two important things you mentioned in here. You said that it's important that we know our objective and then the need to have a plan. And these are some of the fundamental things we need to do from the outset if we actually want to achieve financial independence.
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. Let me just remind our audience that if you have any questions, just remember to put in our comment section, and then right after this show, Derek will be ready to answer all your questions. So just put the questions there, we'll answer them before we end the show. Great. Now, Derek, as I sit here, I actually want to be financially independent. I want to get to that point where I can enjoy money or wealth I have accumulated without having to wake up and come to work every day. How do I approach this? How do I go about it? And I'm sure this is a lot of questions on the minds of many young individuals in Ghana here. So kindly help us, to give us the keys to achieve this.
Okay. Well, I must say COVID-19 has helped you in achieving that, because now you don't have to come to work every day, I presume. So that solves a bit of the problem. But
I'm still working anyways.
Well, true, very true. I think that the first thing, as I said earlier, is that you need to have a plan. So you need to first define what it is that it is your lifestyle. So for instance, you may speak to somebody who says that when I retire, I want to retire comfortably and own a yacht. Somebody just wants to buy a house in Cape Town overlooking the bay. Somebody's own is just to be able to not have any problems, be able to pay for their children's school fees, have a nice house somewhere in Accra. So what I'm trying to draw attention to or draw at is that you need to first define what your objective is. And then you need to have a plan. One of the things that you need to have in that plan, or one of the things that you need to build up into achieving financial independence, is to be able to be financially disciplined. That is the biggest problem for everyone. You earn an income, you earn salary, and this happens to most of the people, including myself. You see some very nice pair of shoes, it's not within the budget, but you're like, oh, you convince yourself that these particular pairs of shoes, I'm not going to get that deal again. And then you break the budget and then you go ahead and buy because you believe that come next month, you earn another salary, you put it back in. There are so many other examples in how we are indisciplined in achieving our financial objectives, or we are indisciplined when it comes to finance. If you intend to be financially independent, you need to build habits. And one of the habits is to learn how to control your spending. So after you plan and after you have achieved or you have set out the objective at which you want to achieve at a certain date. Maybe for me, it's 45, for others it's 50. I want to retire at this stage and I want to retire with this lifestyle. You then break it down to understanding what resources are available to you at this point. So resources can be anything. I keep hearing a lot of friends and a lot of other people saying that, oh, well, I don't have money, I don't have anything, my parents passed away, they didn't leave me anything, so I'm the one taking care of everybody. Resources can be financial, it can be intellectual. So one guy I was speaking to just 2 weeks ago had the same problem. I don't have any resources, I don't have any. And I told him that you're a brilliant IT guy. What you have is your intellect, and what you have is your laptop. You can be financially independent with that. So you don't have to wait for some inheritance to kick in or some windfall to come through before you start. You are able to say that you have some form of resource. Resource is everything around you and everything that you can monetize to make money. So that is the other step that you need to have. Identify your resources and see how you can sweat those resources to generate that income that you want. But it's also very important that you break your objectives into smaller term targets. So what I tell people is that break it down into short, medium, and long-term targets. So for instance, if your retirement is at 50 and you want to, let's say, own a house in Camps Bay in Cape Town, first of all, you need to define how much you need to be able to tell how much that building is going to cost you and set that as your long-term target. So for instance, they tell you maybe it's $1 million. So that means at 50, I need to have $1 million plus. And then what do I have now that in the next 15, 20 years, I can be able to retire and buy out a $1 million house? It sounds very grand when we start thinking about it that way. But most financial professionals, whether be it Warren Buffett or the likes, will tell you that you need to first define that objective and then see how you are going to get there. So you start with your short-term target. So maybe today I work with Axis, I earn X amount. This is my spending or this is my expenditure. And that means I can save this much. You will quickly realize that you probably need 2 lives back to back to be able to get to $1 million at 40. So obviously your resources, you need to generate more income. That's when what we call, or we like to call here at ICAM, side gigs. That's when the side gigs start kicking in. So if you're an IT professional, you start thinking, okay, what other things, what coding, what can I code, what other software, what other services I can have, I can do to generate X amount of money. Because now you've pinned it down into targets, and you know that in the first maybe 3 years of your plan, you need to generate X amount. So you become more focused, and then it helps with being disciplined on the expense side to be able to achieve that target. And what I said also feeds into the next point that I wanted to say, that you need to generate multiple streams of income. Once you are reliant on only savings from your employer, then you are even at risk, because in these COVID times, we've realized a lot of businesses go down. And then that means both your financial independence, your current income are all tied to your current employer. And then your financial independence plan is kaput. So you need to be able to also then generate multiple streams of income in order for you to achieve your medium-term and ultimately your long-term targets. The ultimate thing I will say is that you then need to invest wisely. From my mentor, he'll tell you that you can gather all the investment knowledge in the world, but once you hit the ground, it's a whole different ballgame. So there's no teacher in investment than experience. And one thing I've learned over the years is that when you make a mistake, learn from it. The silliest person is the one who makes a mistake and keep making the same mistake and expecting a different result. I believe Einstein himself said that is insanity. So you need to invest wisely. And when mistakes are bound to happen, but when you make that mistake, you go back, you assess, and then you adjust. I'm sure a lot of your audience or the people participating in this discussion maybe have been burned in the fund management space with all these guaranteed rates that went on. They are largely not to be blamed, because for a very protracted period of time, it was the norm. That was what most Ghanaians knew. I have 100,000 cedis, I have 10,000 cedis, I have 5,000 cedis. How much can you give me? And some of our fund manager colleagues also went with the trend and decided that, okay, I can give you 20%, I'll give you 25%, I'll give you so and so forth. And now it's become a problem. So if you have been bent with bad investments, like what we have seen over the last few months, it's not the end of the world. You need to learn from it. You learn from it knowing that you need to acquire more investment knowledge and then be able to even seek professional advice for you to be able to know which direction you should go and if the direction you've taken is even wise. So in 4 simple steps, what I would say is that first, you need to plan. Second, you need to be disciplined, and I mean financial discipline. You're controlling your spending habits. Third, you need to generate multiple streams of income. And then fourth, you need to invest wisely, ultimately seeking professional advice along the way. So that is what I would say for the road to achieving financial independence.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think you said a lot of deep things in your submission. And one of the things that really caught my attention was the fact that there is no teacher in investment than experience. Of course, if you are bent, then you learn from your mistakes, and next time you don't do things the way you did before. And you also mentioned that resources may not necessarily be large cash that we have, but we should look around us. Anything that we can monitor to bring in income becomes a resource. I think it's a very important thing. And in our circles, one of the things that we struggle with is financial discipline. A lot of us struggle with this particular thing. And if only we could be disciplined financially, I'm sure we'll be on our road to achieve financial independence. And you know, it's difficult to actually build a habit of not spending or controlling your expenditure. It's very, very difficult. I don't know how or what I don't know how you are doing it, or what you can share, at least for some of us who are still battling to be on the right track.
Well, I recently shared something with my interns who joined us a couple of months ago, and they were amazed at the detail of it. I'm a bit obsessive compulsive, so OCD. So I like to keep my things in order. So what I had done, and I recently checked, I have done it since 2012, was to download a budget, personal budget. First it was simple, and over the years I refined it. A simple budget indicating what my income is at the time I'm doing it, and then list all the expenditure that I recurrent expenditure I face on a monthly basis. And in there, I also include investments. You will quickly learn, and that particular thing has really, really helped me over the years, because you will quickly realize that in almost every time, your expenses are more than your income. So then it becomes two things. Either I cut the expenditure, or I need to significantly increase my income by doing other things, generating, as I said, multiple income streams. What I have done over the years, and maybe it's partly because I'm Kwewu, so I like money. So I have done both things. Both on the expense side, I have tried as much as possible to contain it. And then on the income side, I have tried a lot. I have built multiple streams of income. So the first thing I'll advise people is to there are a lot of apps around, and if you can't get an app, just a simple sheet tracking what you earn on a monthly basis and what you expense on a monthly basis. And once you put it down on a piece of paper, you will quickly realize it stares at you in your face, and you realize that I'm not as wealthy as I thought, or I'm not as okay as I thought I was. And if I cut, for instance, if I cut out buying milk every month, it's not impossible. I need to expense that on milk. I need to expense this on groceries. You realize that you are virtually living by day. And then it helps you to stay focused. As a rule of thumb, what I tell others when they do this exercise is that make sure that at least the minimum of 30 to 40% of that income you are generating is going into investments. Be it buying treasury bills or putting it in a mutual fund somewhere. Make sure that 30 to 40% of that income definitely is locked up in there. It might look small when you start, but as I said, I have done it since 2012, and I've tried to do it diligently. So now I look back and I look at my Excel sheet from 2012, and I can see how much that has grown over the years. One thing you have to learn on that journey is that on the road to achieving financial independence is that it's a very long road. So you first need to, after defining it, you need to be able to build measures to track it, which is the budget sheet thing that I'm talking about. And once you're able to track it and monitor it, every now and then go back and look at when you started and where you are now. And you'll be amazed. If you have been indisciplined, it will tell you. And it will tell you how far off you are on your journey. Yeah. So I'll say that those are the simple things that you can do that will help you align your lifestyle with achieving that financial independence. And that particular tool will really help you in cutting your expenditure, because it pulls out all the unnecessary things that you are doing, like sitting with the boys and spending about 200 cedis at a sitting every weekend. And you quickly learn that builds up to about 1,000. I remember when I started and I had a line that said barber shop. I like to cut my hair every weekend. And then I looked at it at the end of the year, how much I'm giving to my barber. I'm like, Jesus Christ. So it puts things in context, and it helps you to be able to plan and be disciplined on that journey.
Great. I think Derek has highlighted the importance of budgeting in your quest to achieve financial independence. And I think somewhere in our sessions, Mimi gave us a more detailed explanation as far as budgeting is concerned. For those of us who missed that session, it's on our Facebook page. So I encourage you to make time and go back and listen to that particular session, because it will help you to actually have a proper budget that will guide you to achieve financial independence. Thank you very much, Derek. And it's usually said that everybody wants to achieve, or almost everybody wants to achieve financial independence, but not everybody ends up achieving it. Can you please give us some of the common mistakes that we do make along the journey that helps us miss this great opportunity?
As I said earlier, I'm a planner and I'm a bit OCD. So I cannot hammer on the importance of planning. I think that the common mistakes that a lot of people, at least a lot of my friends, make is not to plan. We sit there, and I have a particular friend who has been talking to me about, I'll start investing, I'll do financial markets, and he's been saying this probably since 2015, and he's still doing other things and haven't done that. So what you quickly realize is that people haven't planned. They are just living the life and chasing the dream without actually stopping to think about what is the dream and how do I get to the dream from where I am. So I think that the major mistakes people do is to fail to plan. And the important thing too is that some people then plan, you start planning in 2020 for something that you are going to achieve possibly in maybe 2035, and think that you need to rigidly stay on that journey. A plan is basically a guide. When things change, you should also learn to adjust and adapt. So for those who are able to plan, the other mistake is that they are not malleable enough to adapt along the way. Maybe you lose a spouse, or maybe you lose your job, or you make a bad investment, and then it's all hell breaks loose. Now it's moved from making a bad investment to actually staking lottery and hoping that some lotto numbers will click and you can make up your income. You are so far off your course. So it's important that you also learn to adjust when your plan is not going exactly the way you have it. So I'll say that the first mistake is that people don't plan. And once you plan, be able to be malleable enough to adapt when things change.
Great. Thank you very much, Derek. We have a number of questions coming in from our audience. And Peter Asenso wants to find out, how do you determine what asset classes are good and which ones are bad?
Well, there's not a good and a bad asset class. There are good and bad investments, though. It all comes down to what your investment objective is, and then the timing. That's why it's always good to seek professional advice. So for instance, now I am a pro equities person. So anybody that knows me will tell you that I like to talk about equities before I think about anything else. But we are in very uncertain times. So a pro equities guy like me is now telling you that, my brother, look at government securities. So you need to, the timing of the market and then your objective and the macro outlook determine which asset class is good at that particular time. So you need to be able to look at all of those dynamics before picking which asset class works for your investment.
All right, thank you, Derek. Another question for you, LD Sefachi. He wants to find out if it's possible to meet your long-term financial goals without another stream of income.
My Kwewu self tells me no, because I like to dabble in a mixture of things. But I know people outside the shores of Ghana who have been able to achieve financial independence with just a single stream of income. But I must say that their employers then paid very well. So at the end of the day, it depends on the income line that you are generating. So for instance, if you are working, you have a very good, well-paying job. Let's say perhaps maybe you're a top executive at one of these big banks. And your plan is to retire at 50, what you need to do is to see if by 50, you have paid off your mortgage, you have paid off the car that the bank has given you, those other extras that the bank gives you in terms of taking care of your children's fees and all of that has been factored in such a way that by 50, you've taken care of all of that and you can sustain that on your own. So there is no straitjacket route. I cannot say that multiple streams work, and I can't say that single streams work. It all depends on the investment objective and the resources you have available to you at the time.
Great. Now, so it means that if my employer is paying me very, very well, then I can actually achieve financial independence or achieve my long-term objectives, just relying solely on that income.
Yes, so your objective, let's say if your objective is you want to leave your employer at 50, then you look at the savings you are going to make from your current income or your projected income. And if you are comfortable with it and it hits your investment objective, then you don't have the wahala of doubling in other things. But I must say that diversification is a very important aspect of investment. So I'm not saying you're going to lose your job, but if there's a back-to-back COVID-19, COVID-20, COVID-21, your employer himself is going to suffer. So it is prudent to have multiple streams of income just to compensate for any shakeups that might happen to your main income line.
Great. Thank you very much. Lynn Nyakundi also wants to know, does being able to sustain my lifestyle mean I am financially stable?
Can you repeat that for me, please?
Does being able to sustain my lifestyle, mean I am financially stable?
Sustaining it through what? If you are sustaining it through your employer's income, that's your salary, then you are not financially independent because you are dependent on your salary. But if you are generating income from your own resources and you are then sustaining the lifestyle you are currently living, and you can sustain it over the foreseeable future, let's say maybe the next 20 years, then you are financially independent.
All right. So the catch here is that you should be sustaining your lifestyle on your own resources or what you have accumulated over the years. Great. Yeah. Zuleya Nakro wants to find out, are fund managers regulated by a special institution?
Yes, we are. So we are regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission, who has been giving us a lot of wahala in the last couple of months because they are up and doing these days. But depending on which aspect of your fund management services that you are concentrated at, you also have additional regulatory oversight. So for IC asset managers being pension fund managers as well, we are also regulated by the National Pension Regulatory Authority. So yes, we have a number of regulators, and obviously the Data Protection Commission is also our regulator because we need to uphold to data protection laws of this country.
Wonderful. Another question for you, Derek. Senna Abaka wants to know whether the investment process or the investment approach differ from fund manager to fund manager. So if you take Stanley, for example, and then IC, would they have the same investment process or investment approach, or it differs?
Broadly, it differs because it's like personalities. We might have a different view from where they are. As an individual listening, or maybe as an investor, where you've done your research and you've listened to maybe Stanley, you've listened to IC, you've listened to a third investment advisor, all of them speaking 3 different languages. It's up to you to distill between what makes sense for you and which one of that advice will help you to achieve your financial goal. So it's not necessarily the case that we all are aligned on a particular course. Even when we are aligned saying, I'm sure my friends at Stanley will also say that risk aversion is good at this time, given the uncertainty. But even in that bucket of risk aversion, somebody will say, I'm going to buy 3-year government bond. IC will say, I'll buy 1-year government bond. The difference in investment style and philosophies will always be there. And that leads to different investment returns and objectives. So you need to be able to distill that as well.
Wow. Violet Mensa Bonsu, she wants to find out, do fund managers have investment guidelines they abide by in the investment of pension funds?
Yes, absolutely. There's a broader law investment, and once you go to the MPRA website, there are the investment guidelines that guide us, all of us, everybody. But then depending on every pension fund or every trustee, they are able to customize these or adjust these broader laws, but it has to remain in context of the broader regulator, which is the MPRA. So, for instance, we may have MPRA will say that up to maybe 20% of your assets can be invested in equities, or maybe 70%, up to 70% will be invested in government securities. But your particular fund can then say that, okay, no, we don't like equity, so we want 2% maximum. Okay. You are still within the law of the MPRA's guideline, but you are free to also customize your own guideline, provided you are aligned with the MPRA's broader objective.
So pension funds have the free will to customize their own investment guidelines, but it must be within the MPRA allowable limits.
Exactly.
Wonderful. Ecole Freeman, he says that, how can I verify the track record of a fund manager?
Well, it's been an issue in the industry for a while, and it's good to know that the Ghana Securities Industry Association is trying to find a standard, an international standard of reporting in terms of the track record of fund managers. It's become even more important following the issues that recently happened in our sector. So what I'm trying to draw attention to is that one fund manager can tell you that, oh, they've made 25% return on a very regulated investment, which is fine. But there is no proper or standardized way of tracking investment returns. I might go into that fund manager's portfolio and take asset by asset and realize that he's overquoting. But he can also justify why he's overquoting. So what the Securities Industry Association is trying to do is to get all of us aligned on a standardized format. So to answer your question, it's very difficult, especially when you want to compare performance of one fund manager against the other. But what I can say is available now is the kind of returns that are posted on the mutual funds. The law requires managers of mutual funds to be able to, are required to post their returns every week to make it public. So you can then compare, but you need to be careful that you are not comparing oranges with maybe cucumbers. What I mean is you cannot take, for instance, DataBank's EPAC, which is largely an equity fund, and then go and say that, okay, maybe Stanlib's Cash Trust, Stanlib has made 22 and EPAC has made -4. You are comparing two separate asset classes. So you need to, as it is now, make sure that you are comparing like for like.
Great. So it's good for us to compare returns, but we should be careful not to compare apples with oranges. We must ensure that if I'm comparing A, then I should be comparing with A at the other side as well, so I can put it in a better perspective. Great.
Exactly.
Thank you very much. Prince Asamoah says that I'm a contractor. I don't have continuous income. Should I use a fund manager to invest?
I always recommend that you speak to a fund manager because everybody's income, expenditure, investment objectives are different. So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. You need to get a professional advice, at least for the first time. And I'm sure a lot of fund managers are happy to give you first-time free advice. And then you can make a call for yourself, because there are a number of other things that information that fund managers will need from him to be able to provide an appropriate answer to his question. So I'll suggest he speaks to a professional advisor.
All right. Our final question so far is from Gamelia Kapu. He says that how much as a percentage of monthly income liquidity should you reserve for unseen expenses? So how much of my monthly income should I reserve for unseen expenses?
That is a big question. And I say it's a big question because I have been struggling with it since 2012 when I started budgeting. It varies from person to person, but I'll say that the standard rule of thumb is I rather, out of the 40% of my income that I store in savings in terms of investments, and make sure that a portion of that investment is in a liquid asset, which helps me. So for instance, if I am buying treasury bills, out of that 40%, maybe I'll allocate that maybe 10% of that is always in a liquid investment that should I need it, I'll be able to quickly touch it. What that helps me is that most often I realize that my expenses that I feel will become needed, once it's in a treasury bill and I have to go through the process of liquidating and wait 3 days, and most times I would have realized that the expenses are not even necessary and it will pass and my money will still be in that investment. I don't recommend saying that keep that money in cash sitting in your account for the possibility that you will see some unforeseen expense. That unforeseen expense, if it's cash sitting there, will always come. So I'll say that allocate that 40 to your investment, and out of that investment, make sure that there is a percentage, which I like to say is about 10% of that, is always in a liquid investment. When a real emergency happens, you can quickly liquidate that position. That would be my advice.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I think we've had a very wonderful session here, and I must say personally, I've learned a lot on this session. Like I said earlier on, Derek is a man of knowledge, and indeed, he has given us so much insights on how we can actually achieve financial independence. On a lighter note, Derek, I can see that one of your objectives is to have a house in Cape Town, because you use that example twice. So I'm sure it's something you're actually working towards. That's a good one. That's a good one. We are so much grateful for making time to be with us on this show. You've given us so much insight, and I'm sure our audience have actually benefited from all the things that you have said. And from here, some of us will go back and assess our situation and try to put things back on track so we can achieve financial independence. Because from what you are saying, if I don't have to wake up and go to work and just be sitting and enjoying from what I have accumulated so far, it's actually going to be a good feeling. And I believe we all want to have that someday. And so we are very grateful. And I want to just take the opportunity also to thank all our audience for making time to join us today, especially for those who are joining us for the very first time. This has been the Access Smart Money Talk show, and it's something we do every Wednesday at 4 p.m. right here on Facebook Live. And I must say that we are happy you joined us. We are happy you learned something which was very, very, which can be very useful to you in the days ahead. We would like to make sure that you make time with us next week, same time right here on Facebook Live, and we'll bring you another exciting session to help you navigate through your financial journey. I have been your host, Ernest Atima, and on this show, we've had Derek Mensah from IC Asset Managers giving us important information, especially in these COVID times. Until next week, I'll say stay safe and let's stop the spread of COVID-19. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you know that your retirement will come much sooner than you think? Retirement is a crucial stage in life that should not be taken for granted. The absence of a monthly salary during retirement reinforces the need for retirement planning. So how are you planning for retirement? The Access Pension team helped me to set my retirement goals, take my financial inventory, assess my retirement prospects, evaluate my financial situation, set my pension plan in motion, and review and monitor my retirement planning progress.
Oh,
Daddy,
oi,
I
huh?
want to eat pizza.
You will eat both fruits. Go and ask your mother.
Visit accesspension.com. Access Pension Trust, your reliable partner in pensions.